Hola, soy Alejandro Sahuquillo y estoy aquí hoy con el único, el inigualable, el carismático, la leyenda, Joe Justice. Joe, welcome and thank you for accepting this interview. You are actually the first guest that comes twice to my channel.
Buenos dias. It is my pleasure, Alejandro. It is my honor and pleasure. I had so much fun. Our first interview, conversation. I'm thrilled for us to continue our friendship today with this.
And our first conversation actually was more than 3 months ago, too long ago. And you remember what I wrote you the day after?
You wrote many things, but I remember you were excited.
I actually wrote you, I was so excited that I wrote you, wow, wow, wow. And I wrote you that because I was at the meeting, at the middle of dubbing our first interview, and I had to stop because I was blown away for hearing again what we had spoken the day before. And I was happy because the day after, I uploaded the interview both in English and Spanish, and I saw that this excitement was shared by many people. So I'm going to read you a few comments about what you spoke in that interview and how you opened the mind to so many people. Okay, one comment. This is one of the most insightful Tesla videos I have ever seen. And I've seen hundreds, possible thousands. Second comment. 30 minutes in gave me a whole new outlook into the company after closely following Tesla since 2016. Third one. You could watch 1,000 clips and none would be as insightful as this. Truly outstanding. So thank you on behalf of all these people and also on behalf of myself, because you opened my mind, and thanks to our discussion. Also, thank you to a thorough analysis that I was doing lately. I invested a little bit more shares on Tesla. This is not financial advice, but you have spoken, usually people speak about the products. There's people that speak about what is under the products, such as Sandy Munro showing all that is inside, or the programmers showing the code like the white hacker or James Doma. But you explain how this is made and why this is made in such a fast way. So, wow, thank you.
It is my honor and privilege and pleasure. When Sandy Munro tears down, for example, recently now, the Model S Plaid and calls it an engineering symphony, this is something called Conway's Law. Conway's Law from 1967, Melvin Conway, says if we look at a product, we can detect how they communicate inside the company. So if you look at most products, most cars or energy products or solar films, you can see there's department handoffs from mechanical engineering to electrical engineering to software engineering to productization. And you can see the conflicts between people that want something a certain size and people that want more cooling, because they're not in the same group. They're in what are called Sloan silos. Sloan, I've forgotten Sloan's first name, was a manager at the World Bank. MIT Sloan Business School is named after Sloan. This was famous in the 80s because it's easy to manage. You say, put all the mechanical engineers in this office and have a mechanical engineering manager. Then put all the test engineers, the test facilities, in another office. It's easier to manage them. And this created what's called the waterfall process. Now, the waterfall process had been around since 1910 when Gantt charts were first written. But this created the company structure around a waterfall process, where you have a handoff from a planning group to a design group, and then that split to, for cars, powertrain, body in white. Afterwards, you have production manufacturing, where they have to engineer it again for how we actually going to produce this thing. And this is where the 5 to 7 year cycle comes from. And this is normal. Well, Sandy Munro says, how do you get people from powertrain engineering and electronics engineering and software engineering and the packaging team to coordinate in a symphony like this? Well, what Sandy Munro didn't see yet is there is no powertrain team or packaging team. There's no waterfall. There's no Sloan silos. Instead, you have mission teams. Like, what is this module? And it includes people of all skill disciplines working on that full time within touching distance of each other. So there's real-time communication. There's no email. Hey, can you take a look at where I moved this bolt? And when it gets to your queue, let me know what you think. I mean, they're right there. We do techniques like mob and ensemble development, where you have rotations every 7 minutes, and you have a driver navigator and research teams. So in real time, in 1 hour, you have more development than most waterfall processes can accomplish in a week, sometimes in more than 3 months. And this compounds, and you get breakthrough engineering. And in Conway's law, you can see it. When you tear apart the first Roadster, the first one, 2010, even a little bit before that for some of them, you can already see different thinking in the modularization of some of the pieces. And that's even with a different company providing the skateboard of it, Lotus providing some pieces. It was heavily modified, but it's still based on a Lotus design. Even with that, you can see some different thinking, some collaborative thinking that gives you different ways of how electric wires are routed. Most companies would not route them the way they were on the first Roadster. Then you can see that amplified. And if you take a current generation product apart, it looks very different. Conway's law tells you they're not communicating the same way. They're not doing handoffs across skills-based departments. They have parallel executing module teams, which makes it much faster. Maybe the fun thing that I've gotten to learn about in my life is business process. And so that's the piece that I'm happy to talk about. That's where I'm deep. Unfortunately, life is only so long and humans only learn so fast. So no one knows everything. It's actually impossible. So we have to pick what we know about. Now, Musk does a pretty good job working 100 hours a week and doing the work, not managing. So Musk actually does know a lot by doing. The fastest way to learn is by doing something in a pair or mob with other people who are learning about it or already know about it. And Musk does that every day, 7 days a week. So Musk is now a polymath. Still, Musk doesn't know everything. The piece that I'm deep on and happy to talk with you about, Alejandro, is business process. And when it's maximized for speed of innovation, that's what we call agile.
And this business process that you're speaking about, there's some people that say, okay, maybe some other companies, they can catch up, and you have been mentoring some of the OEMs. So now I wanted to have a little bit of imagination, and that you can imagine the average OEM. You have been working with many of the OEMs, and I'd like you to tell me, in all the different mind-blowing things that you spoke in the first interview, and also in the great other interviews with Best in Tesla, with Farsad, with Dr. Know-It-Alls, and all the other interviews, you've spoken about different concepts. So I want you to ask you, if the average OEM wanted to catch up with Tesla in each and every of these points that I'm going to tell you, how many years would it take them? Or if they are behind, or if Tesla by somehow is behind of the average OEM, you can tell me, no, they are behind. So you can say +2 or -2. Okay, first point. Digital self-management, this AI system that tells the workers what to do versus the conventional way of the boss is telling them. How many years Tesla is ahead of an average OEM?
20.
20, wow. Automatic road legal testing. By the way, for the viewer that doesn't understand exactly what we're saying, I recommend to watch the first interview and also the other interviews of the other YouTube channels that they've made a great work. So, second one, automatic road legal testing, that Tesla, in our first interview, you said they are getting to 10 seconds, doing it every 10 seconds and for $1. And the OEMs, it takes them 1 year and between 10 millions and even 100 million. So how long would it take them to get to this level?
It is possible. It is possible if a company made it their number one initiative that they could recreate this in about 2 years.
2
That
years.
said, I don't think anyone is making it a top level initiative. My suspicion is I don't think anyone else is going to have that for at least 6 years.
Okay, so 2 years if it's a top priority, 6 years if it's not top. Third one, digital twins, that it means like all this innovation that Tesla is doing, that is doing by the hours. Every car is different, so they have a digital model. How long would it take to the OEMs to catch up and do a digital twin of their cars?
At the same level as Tesla, likely 5 years.
Yes, 5 years. The budget, sorry, you wanted to say something?
Many automotive companies have digital twins of some systems in the vehicles. So this is not an unknown idea, but of the entire vehicle to the extent Tesla does. Yeah, that would be my guess.
Your guess. Yeah, of course. Fourth one, budgeting by teams instead of budgeting by projects. You say, okay, agile companies, they don't have budgets. And you said, I don't know with whom you said, okay, Volkswagen has just made a budget for the next 7 years. And actually Tesla, they don't know where are they going to invest their money. So how much time would it take to an average OEM to do this change?
I don't see any of them willing to make that change. I think that's the core crux. Now, to actually do that, that's a policy change. It can be enacted as fast as someone circulates a new policy. I don't see any trend of any companies willing to consider Silicon Valley accounting in these established companies.
Okay,
so
perfect.
I'll say never.
Okay, so you think never, but if they wanted, they could do it instantly.
Yes.
Fifth one, the 2-feet law, that is the rule that you said among not only Tesla, but among all the Tesla's company, you can walk to whichever colleague and ask him or her, what are you doing? And join him or her instead of the more separated in departments and also in levels of roles system of the traditional company.
People could start it next week. For it to be as effective as what Tesla does, it needs digital self-management. And so it would be 20 years.
20 years. Okay. The sixth one, the concept of the world cups, that is that once the AI machine learning understand that there's a problem, you can work up all the workers in Tesla receives a notification and you can walk up to this problem and add value. So the teams are gathered instantly and in this digital way, like really agile. So how long would it take them?
That could be instant.
Instant, okay.
That could be instant, yeah.
No career ladder versus a career ladder. You've explained that in Tesla, there's a flatness concept and most of the people are even paid mainly in stocks. So you're not thinking about, okay, I want to be the manager and the manager of the manager to earn more money. So I'm focused on making the company better.
Companies would need to create a new company to do this. It's human psychology. We have difficulty moving away within the same company. But if we're hired by a company that's already doing this, many people are willing to make that decision very quickly. So, for example, Stellantis or Daimler could create a child company. And so that'd be at the speed of creating a child company. Now, for those established players, they take a long time currently to create children companies. So it's probably a year out. Now, some of you may know it is perfectly legal to incorporate a company today. So it could be done immediately. But I would anticipate those companies with the number of reviews required internally by their own policy to create that different culture company, it'd be about a year lag.
A year lag. Okay. Number 8, you've said what is so different than agile, and one of the reasons that Tesla innovates so fast is like the CEO is working in the trenches, making his hands dirt. So how fast do you think a company can do that, an average OEM?
I don't think they ever will. They could do it today. Well, there's another problem. Most companies' CEOs are paid by the board. So Herbert Diess, CEO of Volkswagen, might actually be more talented than Elon Musk. I don't know, but Herbert might. But it's not Herbert's money that's paying the staff. So if Herbert went into the trenches and started working, the board might fire Herbert and say, that's not the highest value of your time to the board. Whereas Musk has a sympathetic board and a high percentage stake. It's Musk's money. So Musk can make long bets that boards would be frustrated about. So there's a structural problem. What would actually have to happen is the board members would need to work in the trenches, rolling up their sleeves. So it's not about the CEO position. It's about the person with the financial authority. And I have not seen any appetite from any board members I've ever talked to in the current generation of these larger companies. So I'd put that in the, it's never going to happen, but it could happen in an instant.
Okay, that we have a few ones of those. And last but not least, the no meetings policy. You've explained that even in Tesla, there's many people that have worked for years and they don't even know their email because they're just working. And when you want to meet is while working. So how long would it take to a traditional company to do this shift?
That would be the same. They'd likely need to create a child company. So it would be a year. Now it'd be a year to create that company and then start the hiring ramp. So basically they would then be where Tesla was 20 years ago. So in 1 year, they would have a scrappy group of people working a little bit like Tesla, ready to start the first Tesla Roadster, essentially. So they'd be a year out from being 20 years behind. That said, they should still do it. It's still worth it, right? Clearly. But yeah, they'd be a year out from starting that company with minimal staff to then begin the ramp. So they'd be a year back from being 20 years behind. Same with the culture question previously.
And Joe, have I missed any point that an average company would take a long, long time to switch to the Tesla way?
Well, the lack of silos is a result of what you said. So I completely agree with you. These cross-functional teams is a result of the law of 2 feet, and the law of 2 feet is effective because of digital self-management, right? These things compound. But the lack of silos will be, when a company crosses that, their products can then become much more innovative. So that's an interesting point. Yeah, most companies would be a year out from being 20 years behind. In a year, they could create a startup that doesn't have silos, and then they'd have to start growing that startup and its competencies and capabilities. Then there's also the automated hardware testing. So these engineers have faster feedback loop and autocomplete. When you're drawing CAD, you have real-time impact testing as you're drawing. So you have a very fast feedback loop. Instead of finishing your drawing, sending it out for review, months later, it's on your desk again for you to receive the feedback. Instead, it's instant, right? Those tool suites, which is part of digital self-management, probably 3 years if it were fast-tracked. Then what else? Digital self-management, venture accounting or Silicon Valley accounting, you talked about that. Sleeping at the bottleneck is related to the CEO, or I'd say board member, the financially responsible person rolling up their sleeves and joining the mobs, joining the ensembles, doing the work. 1,000-year goal.
Oh,
We didn't
yes.
talk about this one. So Musk is not making decisions based on how do we maximize return on investment this year. In fact, Musk is not even making decisions based on how do we maximize return on investment over the next 10 years. Musk is saying on a 10,000 year horizon or even a 1,000-year horizon, what is most beneficial to life and consciousness? So that's a change in mindset that could be instant. However, a board member can sue you for making any decision in your company that's not in the near-term financial best interests of the company. So you need a sympathetic majority board to your decision. And currently, none of Tesla's competitors are structured that way. So it would be a new board or a new board commitment or a reincorporation of the company to be what's called a B Corp, where they're allowed to have a different goal other than only profit without being sued. So a risk for Tesla is the board can sue Musk for making a decision not based on near-term return on investment. However, the current board of Tesla is sympathetic to Musk. It works. Well, if Herbert Diess, CEO of Volkswagen, made a decision that's not in the near-term financial best interest, it's instead investing further out, the board can sue Herbert. And in fact, something like this happened this year with a vote of no confidence in Herbert Diess, and Herbert's power was reduced as a result. So that's key. This idea of a 1,000-year vision makes more money in the near term, but you need supportive investors. And none of the companies currently have this structure. So I'd put it in the camp of it could be immediate. There is no trend for it ever happening. And strangely, this is one thesis why the Musk companies in 20 years will be the companies, and actually with a different form of government and a different currency and a different concept of employment. As crazy as that sounds, I mean, this is where you can start to see that projection.
Okay, it has been really eye-opening because you've spoken for so many concepts. So with these numbers, I can imagine more or less how it works. And I wanted to ask you another thing that you've spoken, I think, with your great conversation with Farsad. Hello, Farsad, if you are watching this interview.
And he's so good at guitar too.
Yeah, he's great. In the third video of the Boca Chica tour with Everyday Astronaut and Elon Musk, there's a moment by the end of the video that team with Elon Musk and with the head of operation of Starship program, they go up into some place to see all the works, and they're speaking, the head of operation and Elon Musk. And at some point, Tim says, guys, you guys are speaking about tomorrow and 2 days, and you don't have any launch. You're speaking about days. Why are you so urgent? And the interesting answer wasn't Elon Musk's, but the head of operation that I think he's called Sam Patel, that he said, no, we don't measure things in days. We measure things in hours, minutes, and even seconds. And actually, today, I told the crane operator that what would you do if in 8 days an asteroid was going to hit the Earth? And you've spoken, I think, in your conversation with Farsad that you were always running. Everybody was running, and you even had to pee in a trash can. And how is, because I understand that if you gather so many people with this digital management, with so much talent, with such a great infrastructure, such a great goal, but how is Elon Musk able to create this urgency in all of his employees?
When I worked with Bill Gates, Bill was really natural at taking an interesting opportunity and cutting it into parallel executable chunks and having enough teams that they would run in parallel without being dependent on each other. Musk also does that. Then when I consulted to the leadership team at Amazon, Jeff Bezos insisted these team sizes are less than 6 people approximately, to maximize innovation. So now you have these highly innovative teams that don't have to wait on each other. They can execute in parallel. Musk also does that. Then what Musk does is, wherever the bottleneck is, Musk is there working until Musk has to sleep. And then Musk rolls out a sleeping bag and sleeps there. And the work continues from fresh people coming in or people who have a lot of durability. Some people can just work a lot of hours, it depends. And when Musk wakes up, Musk gets the current state to understand, is this still the bottleneck? And if it is, keeps working. And if it's not, travels. There's controversy around Elon Musk Jet Twitter account. One of the values is you can see where the bottleneck is, at least what the nearest private airport is, by where the Musk Jet is. So you can track where the bottlenecks are. That is one-to-one what Musk Jet travel means. Now, it's not always Musk. Sometimes SpaceX employees use it, but mostly that's Musk, and mostly that's the bottleneck. Well, this simply by saying this is important and doing, well, not saying, showing this is important by doing the work, it creates interest. Here's a person who has enough money to do anything they want, basically. And this is what they want to do. So that's interesting. That's interesting. What is it they're doing? Oh, that's the bottleneck. Now I intuitively understand, if I can detect a bottleneck, that's interesting and maybe worth time, worth effort. Then you have a regular cadence of success simply by removing frustration actively. So you can solve multiple problems in a day. Whereas in most companies, you'd solve an interesting problem every few months, sometimes even every few years, because sometimes engineering problems have these waterfalls, actually, usually. So every few years, you solve an interesting problem and it makes it into market, and you feel good. You get this boost. Well, if that happens multiple times a day, that creates this fervor. And interestingly, it's very sustainable. That type of intrinsic internal motivation seems to last for decades. It relies on a low frustration and continuous self-approval from solving problems. So I think the way Musk has created this again and again and again in multiple continents, in multiple cultures and multiple languages, is simply by going to the bottleneck and working that problem until it's solved. And then not saying now we're done, saying what's the next bottleneck, or attempting to find what's the next bottleneck and doing the same and doing the same and doing the same. That makes it interesting. And then by everyone creating a system that reduces frustration, the digital self-management is huge for this. The robotic real-time feedback and autocomplete during engineering is huge for this. So you have multiple wins a day. There are people who can sit in a casino and gamble with video poker or whatnot all day. And if they have enough money, they could do that their whole life. And there are people who do. And the spinning lights and sounds create this feedback loop that is pleasant to most humans. And some people can really do that all day. Well, if your sense of purpose is activated by this recurring feedback because you solved an interesting, useful engineering problem to spreading the light of consciousness out among the stars, it validates you. Well, you have an opportunity to choose to validate yourself. And you have this serotonin and oxytocin release, like playing video poker, and about on a similar cadence almost. You're like, I just brought humanity closer to surviving the expansion of the sun. And that is what makes this frenetic, amazing speed. It's the speed of it and the self-validation.
And this speed, at least examples that I was asking you and you were explaining in our first interview, were mainly about cars and even robots. But in other interviews, you have spoken about the innovation of the real product, that is the machine that makes the machine, the gigafactories. So I want you to explain how does the modular XY construction work? Because people can think, okay, you can iterate and improve a car, but you cannot improve a building or the construction of a building. So how do they do it?
Here, I'll share. This is part of
sharing my
Agile
screen
hardware
now.
this
Developer
is actually
course.
a Miro board. This is the part of the online classroom for the Agile hardware developer class. That's me trying to teach. How do the Musk companies actually do what they do? So here's Giga Texas, 2 photos taken 90 days apart. First, that's insane. That speed of construction. You can see the solar panels already on the top. So these modules already have power. There's already production happening inside. In fact, if you zoom in, you can see gigacasts already pouring out of the building while it's being constructed, right? So this is already unusual. Production is happening in these cells as soon as they're built. So the question was about modular XY construction. How does that work? Well, I wish this were even higher resolution, but you can see it. Here are the kits being laid out. And every single one of these kits can be different. They're continuously, because you don't do it in phases where you make all the kits and then assemble them all. This is truly one at a time intentionally. Here's one unit. You can see one unit here. Here's one unit that's already in production. It already has solar on top. It already has its own sewer and sanitation hookups. It's already has people working inside. These are going to get their power soon. Well, as soon as one of these is built, the same people who assembled it are designing the next one. And they're told not to make very many at once so they can get the feedback from the last ones in the next set. Here's the next set here. They're being laid here. They're kitted. So these are stock metal extrusions that are very easy to get anytime you want. Well, almost. There's a short lead time. And they come in batch and they're kitted and then erected in these modules. Well, also remember, massively parallel. So there's not one method. There are teams building these. Then there are other teams building more inside here. There's other teams building more offsite and bringing assembled units on truck. So there's always more than one supply pathway, and they're all getting feedback with each other simply by proximity. There's not separate meetings, and they're all texting all the time using Tesla apps and encrypted messaging constantly. There's not even time for phone calls. There's definitely not time for email. So you're texting frequently with the other teams making these things, and then you're side by side with them, which is how you know they're doing the work. I mean, yeah, there's the group Agile board, but often when you're in it, you're just, well, who was there this morning? I'll message them. Are you coming back today? How many extrusions are you bringing? So you have these evolving kits every day evolving. There's enhancements happening every day. Actually, if we put hangers on the underside of extrusion B12, we can hang the power conduit as we erect this stringer, as we erect this extrusion. And that will save at least 10 minutes next time we make one of these. And you have continuous cycles of information. And it's not like there's a separate group that then audits the design. If there's anyone who would have knowledge to audit the design, they're in the team. So the moment the proposal is made, they say, actually, we wouldn't get, that wouldn't match our zoning if we made this type of circuit breaker box. But we can use this one. So you have, in seconds, the ability to innovate because the people who would do the audit are there. There's no waiting on someone else. So modular XY construction, you have these kits and there's multiple versions all the time, like just like the Tesla cars or the SpaceX rockets. And they're assembled on site and off site. Both are fine. They're installed working to create feedback in the next and make little time for production of the next one. And so you have agility. Now, at the same time, the factory overall envelope and overall plan has some level of legal and government approval. There's a general footprint understanding, a general cubic meters, a volumetric number approved by the governments. Within that, there's a tremendous amount of flexibility that's made very visible to the teams, so they know where can they innovate without penalty. If there's a good innovation that will require new government approval, that is okay, but it has to be worth the time to get new government approval. So those are made visible as well. They're in a different color, saying, okay, if you want to change the cubic volumetric meters over this amount, that's okay, but know that we need to go through environmental approval again. So start that conversation immediately.
Perfect. Yeah, it's mind-blowing, and it's incredible. Like this type of innovation, they can do it even if they're constructing. So you want to show something else from here? That's your visit to SpaceX.
Actually, I'm still not able to show any of my pictures from inside. So this is someone else's who it's already in the public domain. I have pictures from outside SpaceX with me in it, but inside I still don't have approval. People in Tesla and SpaceX, please tweet and say, Joe, it's okay to share your pictures and video. I have all kinds of stuff I want to share. But here's a picture early from in SpaceX. Truly, it's a tent. And by this point, there's electricity, but in the beginning, there wasn't even electricity. I mean, it was a dirt floor with a tent making rockets. That's where Starhopper was made, with generators in the back of trucks. Most companies don't even think that way, right? It's truly, like you said, like you shared again, if a meteor was going to hit Earth in 8 days, what would you do right now? It's that. So there's no waiting for power to be turned on in 12 days. It's let's get trucks with generators. And this is part of the understanding for what makes Cybertruck as good as it's going to be, because these people are truly optimizing for in the field, state-of-the-art production work, which was the dream of a contractor. They wish their vehicle could be their office, their offsite bedroom if they need to, their production facility. And that is what work trucks have been evolving to do. Well, SpaceX and Tesla and the Boring Company have been living this at the highest level faster than anyone. And they say, well, what truck do we wish we had? For example, even what truck means. And this is an understanding that no other company has, because you have product planners sitting in a different office, listening to curated music and drawing what they think would be an exciting work truck. And then that's handed off to, it's such a broken feedback loop. This is why 80% of features built are seldom or never used, because of the disconnect between feature planners and the target audience. And it's also sad and unmotivating anytime you design a product that's not for you. You're imagining what someone else would want and thinking, well, how do I get them excited? Well, then by definition, you're not really that excited because it's not for you. Whereas if you are in Texas trying to make the biggest rocket in the history of rockets, and you're saying, what do I need? And you're giving that feedback, or actually you're also helping design what you wish you had. It's exciting. It's motivating. Of course you wake up still thinking about it. And these all connect.
Cybertruck is super motivating. And Franz shared in the Spikes podcast lately that he said, okay, it was stupid to have a truck where the weakest part is on the outside, that is going to have the biggest damage, that is the paint. So what can we put on the outside? We will put the stainless steel. So that's the reason for the design. But now I wanted to shift the conversation to what you spoke, because as we were speaking before recording, but I don't want to say something that you haven't said before, especially about this topic. You spoke with Farsad that in 2013, you invested in Tesla. And I wanted to ask for Joe Justice as an investor, a really knowledgeable investor, what changed in your mind after working in Tesla as a Tesla investor? What was your, what did you think about Tesla and what changed?
Many. The high level, like what I would tell myself if I could go back in time, is it's real. It's fundamentally superior to any of the other publicly traded options. The hype is real, but in 2013 there was even a different kind of hype. But I would tell myself, structurally, this is the fastest innovating, most durable, highest production ramp publicly traded entity on the planet, is what I would tell myself. Now, there's a lot of detail under that was very useful for me as an investor, which is how the cash flow accounting works, the Silicon Valley style accounting works. It makes much more sense to listen to the investor calls. So as an investor, I would say to myself, let go of any desire for predictive modeling, n number of units per year at Y price, or trying to calculate cost of goods sold. It's too variable for any modeling. Instead, only measure the trend, or only track the trend. Is the profit per vehicle trending up? Is the production rate trending up? And the idea of an estimate and trying to meet or beat, completely let go of that, because that's an artifact of waterfall planning. We planned 5 years out to be at this. Are we on plan? That's a waterfall measurement that's become normal in investing structures because so many companies are waterfall. I'd say that doesn't apply at all. Now, I was already familiar with that from my agile work by 2013. So that's what I would say to another investor. Then this one is far more controversial, but so important. Do not ask for profit. You don't want a high growth ramping company to return any profit. You're actually slowing the company down by asking them to be cash flow positive when they have such growth. You want 120% of revenue put into growing the company in a growth mode. You don't, churning out profit means you're diverting cash from growing the company. And this is growth accounting. Now, a company like Daimler or BMW or Volkswagen or Ford or Stellantis is not in a high growth mode. They're at a relatively steady state over the last several decades. There's a change, but it's not a high ramp. It's nothing like the adoption of smartphones. Tesla is in a ramp faster than the adoption of smartphones. And when you're in that, you don't want profit. You want the fastest allocation of capital to growth as possible. So that's a tip that's different than how you'd measure Daimler. If Daimler's profitability goes down, you think it's because demand is reduced, or there's structural problems with production or supply, or there's management mismatches with the labor supply, with the labor force, et cetera, et cetera. That's because you don't have this high adoption ramp for Daimler products currently, or Toyota products, or anyone's products in these spaces, even energy products, except the Musk companies. So you don't want profit. And in fact, Musk is slightly growing slower than Musk could because of investor pressure to show profit. So shame on us as investors for demanding profit. We've actually slowed down Tesla a little bit. Now, only a little bit, but we have by about 2%. But I want that 2% growth. So please don't ask for profit. Then the other is, don't ask for 100% quality. The goal is to be good enough that there are zero customer rejections. Now, this is not me speaking as a Tesla employee. This is me speaking as someone who wants to maximize the impact of the company and the growth of the company. So this is, as an investor, what I want out of Tesla. Inside Tesla, they actually have extremely high standard. I actually wish it were a little lower as an investor, and here's why. An early adopter of the Model 3, which I was. I got one of the very first ones. My Model 3, his name is Lenny, and I love Lenny. It's a black 2018
Lenny.
Model. We're best friends. Lenny and I are best friends. Lenny has a misalignment on the glass roof. On one side, it's about a 1/4 inch gap between the roof rail and the glass. And on the other side, it's about an 1/8 inch gap. So it's off center. It's actually very difficult to notice unless you're looking for it. But if you do, it is obvious. It's a large enough gap to be completely obvious if you're looking for it. And Lenny has that. That's one of the early Model 3s on the glass. It's perfectly water sealed. There's no functional impact, but you can see there's a misalignment. I am thrilled to have Lenny a year earlier versus a traditional automotive production ramp. Whereas the Model 3s less than a year later did not have that issue because it's continually being improved. Musk understands that, Tesla understands that, and they're saying early adopters are thrilled to have the product now, and it's already safe. We're not trading safety. It already performs excellently. It's already warrantyable. It's highly durable. These things are set. But if you look, yeah, there's a 1/4 inch spacing on one side and an 1/8 inch spacing on the other side. Now, all cars have spacing around these panels. They tend to fill them with rubber strips that peel off in extreme heat, which happened to my Honda, happened previous car, happens to most cars. They have rubber gaskets along the roof rails and they try to make it look cool, but really it's just rubber filler because they also have a gap that is different on both sides. They just cover it, right? Well, Tesla doesn't cover it because they're actually so precise now they don't need to. They're ultra precision. But for investors, what I'd say is, especially on an early ramp, you don't want to delay sale when the early adopting customers are happy to pay even a premium for a product as it's being dialed in. It's already past the level of safety, efficiency, durability, performance. Now you're at these wonderful to haves. You don't want to wait. That is sabotaging the investment. So measuring as an investment metric panel gap on a new ramp product is detrimental to your investment. Tesla could happily wait maybe another 30 days and the products would already from initial ramp be the best in the world. But they know they can sell thousands by starting 30 days earlier. And by having that money 30 days earlier, they can then invest that in more growth. That's what you want. So you don't want to measure quality past the interest level of your early adopters for an early adoption product. In a mature product, you don't want to measure quality past the quality threshold of your late adoption audience, right? So quality is also agile. Now in Tesla, it's actually an absurdly high quality bar. But as an investor, I'd say, no, don't wait. Start shipping Cybertrucks now, sloppy ones. Call them Cybertruck sloppy and charge an extra 20K and see who buys. And I bet it'd be more than 1 million people. So as an investor, I say, do that.
Yes, completely agree. You've said so many things right now, and one that has struck me is you said, okay, it's really difficult to model Tesla because it's in hyper growth. And I've read you a few comments of the people that were mind blown, but also there were some critics of the video. And one of the main critic was, okay, how is Tesla going to 1000x? Or I wrote 1 million, that it's more or less the same. That's outlandish. One guy that commented, he said, okay, I'm going to be billionaire then. So they were all laughing. They said, okay, this is really interesting, but Joe is missing the point. He's crazy in that. But in the last earnings calls, Elon Musk said, okay, forget cars, forget the 25K. We're focusing on FSD. And even long-term, forget Tesla's mission, and we're going to be an AI robotic company with the Tesla Bot. And after that, I started to see like solving the money problem that he had. A video said, okay, Tesla is going to be worth quadrillions. And later, Dave Lee, that he's like more moderating his comments, he said, the Tesla bot has an unlimited business potential. So I wanted to ask you about this Tesla bot from your perspective as a innovation and as the first use case that is going to be being used in Tesla's facilities. How do you imagine this Tesla bot?
Oh, so not the financial limit of the company, but Tesla bot initial use.
Both.
Okay.
Like how is going to Tesla bot impact both financially and also the pace of innovation that you speak a lot? How is it going to mesh with the people, with the workers?
Okay, so
2 questions.
Tesla bot is massive in terms of what it could become. And the trend is extremely interesting. The trend is massive, essentially unlimited, because it fundamentally addresses human scaled labor in a way that interfaces with labor augmenters now, and in a very agile way. A human form factor has a tool set around it that allows dramatic change. Yes, a highly optimized machine is far superior than a human form factor, but it's not agile. It's highly optimized. A human form factor can operate that machine or maintain it or get it unstuck and a lot of other things. So you have this agile way to address labor that continuously improves and can optimize. So the potential is unlimited because you're addressing the fundamental base of finance, which is labor. Capital is allocation of labor in one model, in a very useful, highly debated, but very useful model. And the Tesla bot is addressing that in an agile way. And I think most people don't get that. They're like, why wouldn't you make just a bunch of optimized single purpose machines? Because then you're stuck with only what those machines were designed to make until you completely scrap them to rework them to improve or make them more flexible. Whereas human form factor can operate those already, get them unjammed, and many other agile possibilities. So that's interesting. Now, how that ramp works is, I think a lot of people truly have not had much experience in engineering from concept through to cash in hardware and software combined, because it's super tedious in the beginning. I mean, Tesla makes it relatively fast, but I mean, there's already the autopilot stack, which is the heart of Tesla Bot, attached to all kinds of machines all around Fremont, California, and all the Tesla facilities. So they're already getting auto labeler inputs on tools, metal, humans, factory perspective stuff. What they don't have is auto labeler data from the human perspective. And that is the agile holy grail. It's called human-centered design. So from the human-centered perspective, you have auto labeling and you start to build at least your fundamental decision tree. This is what you want. And that's what Tesla Bot initially will have its breakthrough doing, is this autopilot, auto labeler stack with even the most basic decision-making tree. Like, am I holding the wrench well? That's really cool to have completely autonomously understood through chains and chains of well-trained gradient descent algorithms with random reset. And that is what Tesla Bot initially will have its breakthrough likely. It's not, is it more efficient at turning the wrench? It will be, but way before that, you'll have some basic autopilot stack fundamentals from the human perspective in the human form factor, which is the center of human-centered design, which is the wish, the dream of Agile. That enables you, well, I don't know how far afield you want me to go. That's a big deal.
No, as far as you want. Sorry.
But that is tiny compared to what the Musk companies are actually doing. To put it in financial terms is actually trivial. Well, I mean, it actually trivializes it, because what the Musk companies are doing is aiming to do, is past the concept of money. I mean, already Musk is attempting to reinvent the concept of money with Doge, and others, also Bitcoin, Bitcoin investments, and then how Bitcoin is sustainably mined, etc. It's bigger than that. And a way to think about this as an investor is when a hunter-gatherer society in Europe of Neanderthals and then Homo sapiens, if you think of what the economy value of trading seashells and mammoth tusks is, then the understanding of domestication of farm animals and the old-fashioned, extremely inefficient, but breakthrough political structures of fiefdoms and chiefdoms and then fiefdoms allowed for then organized defense, organized labor, and eventually, like, let's take that just up to the German Machinist Guild and Dutch trading. So from Neanderthals, Homo sapiens, tusk trading, seashell trading, what's that economic size? And then you go from, like, let's call that US dollar, euro, yen, RMB. I just forgot another global currency I really wanted to say, but let's call that tusks and seashells, right? So let's overlay it. And then you have a culture package set of changes that is altogether lifestyle change, concept of currency change to fiat currency at that time, globalization through seafaring boats at a different level than had been before. Yeah, the Vikings were way earlier than that, but the larger ships then scaled it, colonized at a higher level. We're able to sustain those. We're able to monetize that through Dutch trading and then the first stock exchanges. That's what the Musk companies are doing right now. So fiat currency to cryptocurrency, which is not just the Musk companies, that's a movement anyway, but Musk is attempting to steer part of that and build it into the Musk companies' self-management system, digital self-management system. That's part of this jump of that magnitude. The idea of robotic labor in a human form factor that is not remote controlled and not running off scripts, but attempting to make at least basic decisions on its own and labeling its own environment. That is as big as a land bridge dissolving and then boats being able to cross it again with sustainable trade routes. The idea of a self-sustainable colony on Mars with a currency that scales out among the stars is bigger than the colonization movement before, and better. It's not just colonization, but this time planets, because the concept of ownership is different. And it's not like China owns Mars or India owns Mars or Japan and the United States together own Mars. It's not that. The concept of nation states, which, remember, I'm intentionally creating a timeline of before the concept of nation states. And then introducing those had tremendous value at the time. We're now talking about trying to move out of nation states and to this truly interstellar, well, not yet interstellar, but interplanetary and eventually interstellar. I mean, that is the ambition.
Yeah.
With a currency system that makes sense, that's not owned by any nation. Like, note, Musk is trying to use currencies that are not owned by any nation, with a new type of timestamp that's not based on any point on Earth, because what good is that on the moon and Mars? With a communication system that's not owned by any nation, Starlink, and then also Musk will use others once they're viable, right? Musk isn't trying to make monopolies, but Musk is only using pieces that are compatible with this long-term vision. That is the level of change being attempted. So you have investors now that are saying, yeah, but how's that going to get me more seashells or mammoth tusks? Like, that's how broken most investors are thinking. And they're like, Well, how big does Tesla stock have to get before I can buy a Lamborghini Urus? Like a Lamborghini Urus won't run on Mars. It uses combustible fuel. It's not compatible with the atmosphere. That's like saying, how many seashells do I need to trade before I can get a spear point for this mammoth? And that is irrelevant, even jumping forward to a fiefdom or the German Machinist Guild or Dutch trading. You don't want a different harpoon point at that point, and no one wants your seashells. That is what is happening. And when people say, I can't imagine Tesla going to 1,000, it's the concept of money will be different by then. So you're right. It's not that Tesla goes to 1 million. In fact, it will, but by that point already, you'll be mapping it to what does this mean in a different form of currency for buying different products, because you won't be benchmarking it based on oil or gold. It'll be based on raw commodities that are useful in a very different application set. And it wouldn't be based on the price of houses in San Francisco, because that is also irrelevant. Like, the model is changing. And this is what agilists have an easier time trying to grapple with. And waterfall folks who want to model consistently, saying, the things I was told that were valuable when I was a small child, how does this increase those? Well, it will, but as a byproduct, because what's happening is the things you were told were valuable as a child are being transcended, outmoded, and being reduced in value. So you would call that inflation. Well, reverse inflation, you'd call that a modification of the market, but it's because they're becoming irrelevant. Well, how much diesel fuel will that let me buy? That's not going to help you if you're on Mars. It's not going to be useful. And that is what most people don't understand. So yes, the concept of money is shifting, and that is reducing the value of almost all other types of investments, almost other type of investment categories. It looks like inflation. It's actually a shifting of what is meaningful to be alive. And I'm not saying it's guaranteed to be successful, but that's the target. And that is the trend. And we're actually in an interesting place on that trend where Tesla is as valuable as every other automotive company combined on planet Earth. So we're already in this point of the inflection. Well, if that continues to ramp, what do you think is happening? It's not a car company. It's what we would call a culture package in terms of gun germs and steel. It's like domestication of horses and all the other cool things that went with that. The idea of self-managing parties, reconnoitering parties with trade authorities, the idea of contracts. I mean, we're actually transcending that. Contracts are now changing. The idea of self-organizing parties are now changing, right? But it's as impactful as the introduction of a treaty was to just, I don't know if they're going to poison my family anymore or not, right? Oh, well, we have a treaty, and that is upheld in something called court. Well, now court is changing. It's now becoming more, moving towards blockchain. And it's not that there is any given people wearing wigs judging whether you said what you meant and meant what you said and enacted it. It's, does the blockchain record that you upheld the terms of what you both agreed you understood at that time? And it's moved past courts, because it's not like you're going to go back to England from Mars to renegotiate your mining contract. Right? That would be unuseful. So you need a system that scales. We are at that shift.
What a moment to be alive. It's incredible. I mean, the convergence of so many technologies and the change of what being human is being developed is incredible. And I mean, we were stars, and then fishes, and then reptiles, and then monkeys. So people, they think, but this Neuralink, what is going to be, or this Tesla bot that even Elon Musk said a few years ago in some interviews, that at some point you will be able to download your personality inside the new device, non-organic. And people, they say, but that won't be human. But what is being human? Human is is atoms, and atoms is everything. What we were before, what we will be tomorrow. But I think we could be speaking for hours and hours, and it's really insightful the way of knowledge that you have about all these things, and it's really, really inspiring. And more inspiring even is that I wanted to tell you, like in the previous interview, is your TED Talk of 2011. You have 2 TED Talks, and the first one, by the end of it, everybody was like really, you see from the crowd that they were like really amused. But when you said, okay, I ask all of you to give 2 hours of your time, of your day, or of your even week to help in profit social goods. And it's really, I recommend everybody to watch, and I will link it in the interview. Just see the faces of the people in the crowd that they start crapping. So that talks a lot about you. And before we started the interview, you were speaking to me that you are starting or helping another entrepreneur with I'm In. Could you explain a little bit what is it about, and how can we help myself or anybody that is watching you and wikispeed and all this way of helping people to be better in this life before we become Tesla bots?
You're so awesome, Alejandro. There's a gentleman named Joe Nolan, who's a Tesla investor and Tesla supporter and FSD beta driver. And Joe started by saying, I want to offer FSD, full self-driving drives, to other interested people who are near me. So I want to make a way where they can find me and I can find them if they're interested, and I can show them this product that I'm so excited about and so excited about its growing potential. That's how it started. And Joe Nolan created a website called I'm In to say, I'm interested in where this technology is going that's environmentally friendly. Well, he's been adding to it. And now there's a place to click to say, I think this is a neat idea, and I'd like to add ideas. For example, someone could click and say, I want to run a landscaping business with all electric power tools. So there's no noise, there's no spilled fuel. The efficiency is far superior from an energy standpoint than combusted fuel, especially in these small motor landscaping tools. And I want to recharge it with a Cybertruck. Can you help me find clients that would prefer all electric service? And if you want, you even want to invest in me and you get a return, and I'll buy a second Cybertruck and I'll make it a mini franchise. You know, I'll make step 2. I'll say, who wants to drive the second Cybertruck and go to another property at the same time? So you could maybe invest or support. You could at least connect me with customers or offer to be my customer. There's a spot on the website where you can suggest these ideas. And what's happening is a community is evolving of people who have entrepreneurial interests that are on vision of spreading the light of consciousness out among the stars, or accelerating the change to sustainable mobility and transportation and energy. And also even just people who say, I'm interested in this. Can I help put solar panels on top of the community center in my small town? Is there anyone else in my area that is also interested in that? Let's have coffee. And this is growing. Now, what Joe hadn't done yet, Joe Nolan, is create a nonprofit legal structure for the company so it could handle money. Right now, people are expressing interest and they're connecting and meeting, and they are going for rides in Joe's Tesla on full self-driving. So that's happening, but it's not yet a monetary exchange platform, which is the ambition, one of the ambitions. I already have wikispeed, which was the subject of the first TED Talk, and it is a nonprofit organization. In the United States, it's a 501c3. And I said, Joe, I'm mostly teaching agile classes online now. I'm not doing as much with wikispeed. It's my passion. It's what I hope to do with my whole life. But right now I'm focusing on growing capital. I'm doing things that I get paid to do. I'm teaching agile project management. Do you want to join wikispeed as a board member and have it be the structure behind I'm In? And we're having that conversation right now. I think it's happening. So if you go to wikispeed.com or wikispeed.org right now, it talks about our ultra efficient car that we developed, which is when I got to first work with the Tesla teams in 2010. Soon it may have I'm in on it. Now you can go to I'm in right now. In fact, I'm going to look up the URL and provide it to Alejandro so it can be linked to in the video. And that will probably be cross-linked and eventually embedded inside Wikispeed. What should be really cool about this is anyone who thinks what the Musk companies are trying to do is good, that's what I'm in is trying to mean. I'm in with supporting what the Musk companies, the best part, the healthiest ambition of the Musk companies. I'm in. I want to support that. And maybe you would even put some of your time, like maybe 2 hours a week, like the Wikispeed model, into one of the opportunities that you learn from other people who are also saying I'm in. And I love this idea. And I think it could be a collaborative and powerful, agile community.
And yes, it is. And you will have to update us with how is going this collaboration, and we will check it. You've said about agile, and you're already a veteran of my channel, so you know that I have a game by the end of the interviews. So, Mr. Joe Justice, we're going to play the one word game that you have to answer me just one word. You cannot repeat it, and really agile, really fast, the first word that pops to your mind. Are you ready?
I'm ready, Alejandro. Let's do it.
Okay. What is the just one word that pops to your mind for your working experience at Tesla?
Thrilling.
Tesla stock.
Moon.
Digital self-management.
Necessity.
Neuralink.
It's got to be one word, right? Doppelganger.
Okay. Model S.
Huge.
Model 3.
Agile.
The world in 2050.
Seashells to fiat currency.
Okay, even if it's not one word, it's clear. Tesla's pace of innovation.
Sustainable.
Tesla in 2040.
Unrecognizable.
And last but not least, automatic road legal testing.
Necessity. Oh, I can't use the same word.
No, same word.
Foundation.
Okay.
I mean,
Joe,
basically,
thank
every
you.
company without that's going to die. It's like getting a new heart when your heart is stopping, right? Man, I hope more people understand that soon.
Yeah, and it was really eye-opening because you were the first person that I've heard about it, and I've read, I think, all the books that there are about Elon Musk, and I'm trying to read, listen, everything, and it was really eye-opening. But I wanted to ask you, you said like you were showing us pictures about how Tesla is innovating and how SpaceX also is innovating in Boca Chica, in the construction, in everything. Where, if I wanted to do one of your courses or consulting, where could I contact you?
Thank you so much for asking. www.abi-agile.com. That's the Agile Business Institute, abi-agile.com. And the courses are in every time zone. I rotate through a different time zone per week, so it's fully global.
And there they can do both courses and consulting with you and everything, right? In that aviagile.com.
Yes.
Okay.
And I will accept Doge at an equivalent of $1 per one Doge, which is a massive, massive discount. I won't do that for any other currency, but I'm long on Doge, so I will. Now, for that, you'd actually need to email so I can send my Doge payment QR code and link. But yeah, I will accept Doge at $1 per Doge for the consulting company. I'm making enough money that I can make some brave long-term plays.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, Mr. Joe Justice, remember that I end all my interviews by the guest saying, hola, soy Joe Justice y estoy aquí para que triunfes.
Hola, soy Joe Justice.
Yes. Y estoy aquí para que triunfes.
Yes.
You live in the best moment in history. Enjoy! If you like this video, please give it a like, leave a comment, share it with the whole universe. And since I want to make interesting videos for you, I need to know what interests you. Write your suggestions. If you have enjoyed this type of content, subscribe to this channel so you won't miss any future videos. I'm working hard to make the best possible content for you, but it takes time. Consider supporting me in Patreon, the best moment in history, so I can stop living under a bridge and continue creating content for you. There's a link in the description. Thank you very much from the heart. Gracias.